Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, "Want to feed every bird in the city?" We'll put a stop to that stat. I live in a 10-story apartment building in a dense part of a city with numerous other tall complexes, but also a number of old single-family homes. One such home abuts my building, directly under my 8th floor apartment. The longtime owner has had a pigeon coop in his backyard for years. The birds smell and are a nuisance, but no big deal. Then about 6 months ago, the owner took it upon himself to dump 20 pounds of bird seeds in his backyard daily, attracting 200 to 250 city pigeons. They are ferals that lived in a nearby park, but once the feeding started, they ended up hanging out my neighbor's roof most of the day. Every day. Complaints to him to desist were fruitless. Numerous neighbors also complained to city officials, but they were useless. Animal rights activists on our city council who halted a pigeon control program a few years back as cruelty to animals are very pro-animal. They refused to take action under the pretext that there is no sort of nuisance law the city could use in this case. The smell from pigeon poo in his yard progressively got worse, and the birds started roosting on our property and crapping on parked cars. Several disgruntled neighbors, including me, pondered a solution for months. A neighbor and I arrived at a solution, artificially escalating the nuisance level of the problem, specifically the bird reek, so the city can no longer ignore the nuisance. It had to be logical, secretive and calibrated. Someone couldn't throw dog poop onto his property and expect an outcome. Long story short, we concocted an odorous slurry. The neighbor who helped me got his brother, a chemist, to input. It was some kind of sulfur mixed with an oil and another product. Using my 8th floor balcony directly over the pigeon lover's backyard, I gave it a gradually increasing midnight sprinkling of slurry, which disappeared into the grass in his messy backyard. Within 1 week the increased odor emanating from his property reached 1/2 block away. Suddenly the problem was resolved. We did not see the official action, but word was that several prominent businessmen who own a restaurant down the street complained to the mayor about the stench. The city took action. The guy is now only allowed to keep about 15 pigeons in coops, no more feeding the ferals. An unorthodox solution to a problem that needed to be dealt with. The next one is titled, "If you're going to set me up, do it right or don't do it at all." This actually isn't my story but my aunt's. We recently had a family dinner together and she finally told us this story of why we never meet our uncle anymore. For some backstory, my aunt is a high-functioning, high-octane unit of a woman. She's a surgeon and has time to run marathons and play with her 2 kids. She married James when they were like 20, so she had spent a whole chunk of her life with him. She received an email a few years ago blackmailing her. It said if you don't leave your husband I'll release your sex tape that was filmed without her knowledge online. There was a screenshot of the sex tape in question, in which you could see her face clearly, but not her husband's. Although it was him, his face was out of shot. She said she was terrified, but when she came to her senses, she thought that it was weird they didn't ask her for money. She became suspicious of the email itself, and then she began to suspect James. She thought it was his ploy to separate from her without needing to file for divorce first, and if there was a sex tape filmed, he must have access to it as she wasn't the one filming. She went through his phone to find the sex tape. Instead, she found that he had been cheating on her with another woman while he was stationed in Japan, Navy SEAL. She saw the texts, nudes, and eventually arrived at the part where James sent the video to the woman who suggested they use it against my aunt in order to get her to leave him first and get custody of the kids as they claim neglect. She went berserk. She said, "Not only did I find out he was cheating, but that I had married an idiot with a mind of an undescended testicle who doesn't know basic custodial laws." She then promptly downloaded their WhatsApp chat data and did the following, for James. 1. She immediately called her in-laws and explained the situation in graphic detail. They love her, so they begged to remain in the kids' life granted they financially support the kids, not her. 2. File for divorce and use the cheating against him. She ended up getting full custody and he didn't get visitation because 3. She sued him under unlawful surveillance. He went to jail for 3 months, was fired and now has a permanent criminal record. For the other woman, 1. Called the husband of the woman. Explained the situation and sent him the texts and pictures. 2. Called into the woman's workplace and stated she had been distributing photos of herself over a secured website. She apparently was a civil servant, not anymore. 3. My aunt contacted the woman's parents and explained the situation in detail, and they offered to pay for the legal bills. 4. She applied to a bunch of escort stripper clubs with the woman's information, using her work and personal email. 5. She put her phone number online as a sex call service. When she changed her phone number, my aunt found out through social media and did it again. 6. She wrote a letter to the woman detailing how small her tits were. Petty? Perhaps. Jokes aside, she is still going to therapy over this, so I think it's well deserved. Don't duck with my aunt, guys. The next one is titled, I switched the name of his mistress to his boss's name on his phone. My boyfriend cheated on me while I was pregnant. He travels during the week for work and was seeing another woman in another state. I changed his side chick's phone number in his phone to his female boss phone number, which I also found on his phone. So the mistress's name but the boss's phone number. I confronted him, threw a fit, everything to be expected. He wanted to fix things. I said I'd only consider forgiving him if he texts his mistress to tell her of his mistakes and that he's ending the relationship. I also demanded he let her know I'm 5 months pregnant. His message was much more than I had hoped for, and went something like this: Hi, this is XXX from Tinder. I made a huge mistake sleeping with you for the last few months. My girlfriend is 5 months pregnant and I don't know what I was thinking about bringing you to my hotel each week while I was supposed to be working. I love her and I want to fix things with her. I'm sorry I misled you and I need to end this affair with you because she caught me and I don't want to lose her. You were a mistake. Bye. That message went to his boss. I don't think she was happy to hear he was intimate with women he met online when he was supposed to be at his customer every day they paid for his travel. No idea what happened to him next. Screw him, I'll never speak to him again. But that revenge felt good. The next one is titled, Scream at Me and My Friend. Your career is done. Back when I was in college, my pathophysiology class had a final project worth 50% of the total grades we could earn, and groups were picked at the beginning of the semester. This was a massive project that you were expected to start working on at the beginning of the semester, and if you thought you could do it all last minute, you were probably in for a bad time. It was myself, 2 other girls who I knew worked hard, and then this one guy that the one girl was crushing on. She had to add him to our group because he was cute or something, I have no idea. I call him idiot every time I tell the story, though, because he truly was an idiot. The girls were fantastic, and everyone pulled their own weight during this project, with the exception of Idiot. Idiot never once did any of the group project work. He ignored all messages through texting, Facebook, but would answer the one girl if she was flirting with him. He would only show up to class maybe twice a month if that. He would constantly post photos of himself on vacations in Mexico or the Bahamas. I'm pretty sure he spent more time out of the country than in it. 1 week before the project is due, he messages the group asking what pages in the textbook he needed to look through to do his part of the project. We tell him what he needs to do and where to find the information. We laid everything out for him. If we did anything more, we would be better off doing his part of the project ourselves. Idiot thanks us and then disappears. We all assumed he was doing the work he needed to do, and we were prepared to take a hit on our marks because he didn't have anything done up until now, so the quality of his work was probably terrible at best. The project's due date rolls around, and he's nowhere to be found and is ignoring all of our desperate messages. We, myself and the 2 girls, go to the professor and tell her everything that happened, along with screenshots of the literal month's worth of conversations where we constantly tried to get Idiot to come to labs with us or the library where we offered to help him do his part. The professor was not amused. Immediately, he fired off an email to Idiot and CC'd the head of the program as well, basically saying that Idiot needs to either do his part and show up to class the next week with it, or he will receive a 0, and the rest of us won't be affected. Can you guess what happened? Idiot was a no answer and no show, with no excuses or anything. Professor gave him a fat 0. It turns out that he needed to do this project and do well on it to pass. He bombed every test, and with this failure, he was denied from passing that semester. I'm fairly certain he had to retake that course during the summer, which means he, or more likely his mum, had to shell out another $1,300 just for that class. A couple of months later in the college bookstore, Idiot and his mum, I call her Screamer, run into myself and the other girl who didn't like him, and Screamer just loses it on the girl and me, screaming at us saying we constantly harassed her son, and she was going to make it impossible for myself or the girl to find work. Idiot's mum worked in the same field that our degrees were for. She sat in the board of directors for the Public Health Alliance for the area, so she was a public figure and a supposedly well-behaved and educated one too. She was escorted out by security shortly after, but that wasn't all she had planned. Screamer ended up dragging myself and the girl through every single college meeting they could schedule regarding our non-existent negative behavior towards her son, where he claimed he was constantly harassed, yet with no proof. It was literal months of this poor girl and I have to change our schedules for school classes, studying, so we didn't have any classes or chance happenings, run-ins with Idiot, as that's what the college demanded we do. It made our last year, or 2 semesters, living hell because we couldn't be anywhere near Idiot, otherwise, we could face interdisciplinary hearings or worse. Now, for the revenge, the security company that handled the contract for the college was also the same company that handled the contract where I used to work. I was extremely close friends with the night shift supervisor, going out for drinks and playing Halo all night with him and his girlfriend sort of close, so one night after I finished work, I asked him for a favor. On the promise that I wouldn't tell a soul he helped me, and telling him he'd have another great video to share with his friends, I asked him to let me email the video to my personal email account. After I told him what had happened and on what day and time it happened, he drove me to the campus. Just after the main building had closed, he and I walked over to his security office where they have all of the recordings that run back to the day the security system was installed. He brought the video up of Idiot's mum in the college bookstore, audio and all, of her screaming at myself and my friend. He recognized Screamer. It turns out she's done this before at a different site he patrols and that he was told he had to keep it quiet by his superiors. I told him he could be as quiet as he wanted, but I was going to get my revenge on her. A quick email later, and I was in possession of the video. I found out who the rest of the board members were over the course of a few days, and they were all sent an email with the video of Screamer going ape crap in the college bookstore, screaming at an obviously confused guy and a freaked out girl. The audio perfectly captured the moment where she threatened to make it impossible for me or the girl to find any work anywhere within that district, followed by her argument with security as she was escorted out. I never received any replies from the board members, so I just waited to see what would happen. Screamer was voted out from her position the following week after the video was shown during one of the meetings she was attending. She lost her very cushy government job and was last seen working in an old age home according to a mutual friend. I'm not sure what happened to Idiot, but I did hear from the same mutual friend that he never did graduate and works at a call center now. The girl and I ended up finding full-time work immediately after graduating. Never had an issue there. Oh, and the security guard ended up getting hired by the RCMP, so I guess good things do happen to good people. The next one is titled, Withhold My Pay? No more business for you. I worked at a small local spa company. There were only about 6 workers there. I worked there for a year and a half and only met the owner once but talked to them on the phone a lot. She was bat crap crazy, but that's beside the point. Anyways, I got hired because my friend's mum, Pam, was the manager, and someone had quit in the middle of their shift, so they needed someone fast. I worked really well there and learned very fast. I was very good at the job to the point where after a couple of months, they sent new hires to be trained by me. Turnover here was bad. Despite this, I didn't get a raise or anything. It wasn't a big deal, but it would have been nice. Anyways, I was always a closer. There would be a list of things I had to do after we closed, like vacuum and dust and such. Janitorial things. As the months go by, Pam begins to pick apart things. A string was left on the rug, the candy bowls weren't filled even though they weren't even half gone, etc. Nothing too big, but they made it seem like I liked their mother. Slowly, things started to get worse. Eventually, I was being told that I was not cleaning rooms that I know for a fact I had. Now, I admit that once in a while, I would forget to clean something, but I was getting yelled at for things I knew for a fact I cleaned. My other problem was that when my coworkers would forget the same exact things, she wouldn't yell at them but would just say, "Try to remember," or something along those lines. Eventually, Pam got other coworkers to lie so that she could report me to the owner. Many days, I came right from school and would be wearing jeans. Pam left right when I got there, so after I clocked in and counted the drawer, I would go and change into my work pants and shoes. Well, it turns out other coworkers would lie and tell her I never changed. After this, I began taking pictures and time-stamping them. This worked for a little while, but then my coworkers would say I changed back into jeans after that picture. And when it came to cleaning, she would say I didn't clean it well enough, etc. All of these would get turned into the owner, but she wouldn't fire me because they were so desperate for people, and no one wanted to work there. I wonder why. Eventually, I quit because I had a job for the summer that gave me many more hours. In my summer job, I made the same amount of money in 7 weeks that I made in a year at the last place. Right after I left, I learned why Pam wanted me gone so bad. Pam hired her son, my ex-friend, because he was too lazy to work a job where he couldn't sit around all day. That made me mad, but even worse, they wouldn't give me my last payment. We were paid in cash. I sent multiple emails and text messages to Pam and the owner that reminded them that I needed it. When those went unanswered, I then threatened legal action. Being a high schooler, I don't believe they thought I would do anything. How wrong they were. Well, there were many reasons I was mad about this, and so I decided I'd document every single thing about it that place. These include 8+ hour work day with no breaks or a lunch, both of which are required in my state, rats in the basement, ant infestation, fake security cameras, allowing underage drinking, Pam faking the amount of money we had to pay her son and daughter for under-the-table work, child labor, Pam's daughter was not old enough to work, not fixing things like building framework, mold, etc., allowing temperatures to go above and below the legal limit on bad days, it was above 100 or below 50 inside, drug use, Pam giving themselves a raise, even though they already made more than everyone else there, selling client information, Pam compiling clients for another worker to take with them to a new company, usually not illegal, but the way they went about it was not doing anything about harassment. Not paying workers, there'd be days where we didn't have enough money in the drawer, and the owner and or Pam would be too lazy to go to the bank, so they would just straight up not pay us. Not only these, but prior to me leaving, I recorded some of the verbal abuse from Pam. Believe it or not, I even got him to admit to making false write-ups on me. There was more, but I can't remember what else right now. Anyways, I compiled all of this and sent it in an email to OSHA. Crap went down. In the end, both Pam and the owner were served with some hefty fines, and Pam is even facing jail time right now for fraud. The owner had to shut down their business and sell it. I don't know if the owner is facing any jail time. I also emailed every spa within 50 miles, so the owner, Pam, and some co-workers have been blacklisted from working within an hour of where we're located. I never did receive my last payment. It wasn't worth going to court over, but what came out of it was so much better. The last one is titled, "A Little Gasoline, a Front Yard, and Revenge on a Rapist." Back in high school, sadly a long time ago, most of the neighborhood kids worked at a local pizza place. This was great because we all were friends and could hang out after the place closed for the night. In the summer, this meant 11 p.m., so we'd have great adventures during these nights. It also meant we were all close and would do anything for each other. One of the girls that worked with us was a cheerleader for the high school. She was very pretty but very social and nice to everyone. She was very religious and didn't date anyone until she was 17. Needless to say, she hadn't been with a guy in any way. Prom came around and one of the football players asked her out. She was super excited, but confided in us that he was a big-time player and that scared her. She was able to round up a group to make it a group date. The next day she came to work and instantly, we knew something was wrong. She was flat and didn't smile. She didn't come play games that night and went home. After a week, we found out what happened. After the dance, the limo took everyone home and they were the last ones to be dropped off. Her parents were out late that night and her sister was with a friend, so she was home alone. The boy invited himself in and immediately started kissing her and touching her. We never got much on details, but as we understood it, he got her underwear off and had removed his pants and was not listening to her pleading to stop when her parents got home. He quickly got dressed and left before they got in the house. After this was learned by her best friend, they encouraged her to tell her parents. She did, and they approached the police. The police investigated it, but after interviewing the boy, he claimed it was all her, consensual, and she told him to leave. I knew this girl for 3 years, we believed her, and when nothing happened, we knew it was time to exact some revenge for her. Now, I'll be honest, our group was mostly computer nerds, D&D guys, and some good car mechanics. We didn't carry the same social prowess that this boy did in the school and with his group of friends. That said, he wasn't really well liked, he was just a strong personality that made those around him follow him. We went over many different ideas on how to get him back. Physical violence was almost the easy way out, but we also knew it would put targets on our backs and make it easy for him to make up a reason not related to the truth. Then, one in our group got an idea that we went with. His parents were big into church, he was a church-going boy himself, but everyone knew that was a sham. His house was on a busy road in town that led to the church. His parents had a well-manicured lawn, flower gardens, and it was on a slight hill up from the road. The perfect billboard for our message. It just so happened we knew he and his family were to be out of town one weekend until late Saturday night. So Friday night, we went to work. We got 3 gas cans, and on this well-manicured lawn, in large letters probably 5 feet tall, we wrote, "John is a rapist." Knowing it would take a day for the grass to completely die, we knew it would be prime for Sunday morning. It actually started to show the next day, but they weren't home to do anything about it, and you only knew it was showing if you were looking. Church started on Sunday at 9 a.m. and by 9 a.m., the grass was dead and yellow and it stood out like a sign to the city. Most of town had driven by and it was being talked about at church. By 9:30 his dad had covered the lawn with a tarp and he had the lawn replaced early the next week, but the damage had been done. Here is where the story took a twist we didn't see coming. The next day, the word goes around quickly at school what had happened. He wasn't there either, in fact, he didn't come back. That day, 2 girls went to the counselor's office and reported that he had raped them. They heard what had happened and knew that he had gotten someone else and felt that it needed to stop. He was 17 at the time and wasn't charged as an adult, but he was put into detention and never came back to school. I never quite heard what happened to him again. Our friend was really upset at us initially, although we never admitted doing it, but she knew us. Knew we'd be white knights to her defense. A few weeks later, after everything shook out, she started to become herself again and she told her friend she was glad he was caught and glad that he was outed. So, that is my story about how we took revenge on the city's big shot football player. Thanks for listening.